AIAS, because I do a lot with AIA, and I'm telling you, you guys have the energy, you have the optimism. It's so refreshing to be here and see the future. You guys are the future of the profession, and all I'm going to do is kind of try to inspire and bring kind of really cool ideas out of everyone. So super excited about Revolution. So Grassroots Movement, Architecture for Impact is what this is called. And so we'll be looking at architecture for impact and kind of abstracting that a little bit. So me, again, Alex Alamo. I'll go over kind of my background in a little bit. Again, the changing profession and the generational upmerge, I'm calling it. It's kind of like you have a lot of baby boomers about to retire, and you have a lot of millennials coming into the workforce, and you don't have that many Generation X, they're usually your managers and stuff in the workforce. So the question is about leadership and who's going to lead. So we'll get into that a little bit. And the role of the young architect generation, which is what I'm calling us. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it differently? What is architecture and what is grassroots? And again, the kind of format is about my story. The Orly, so Operation Resilient Long Island, is a group I co-founded with Dan, and we've done kind of grassroots resiliency. We'll kind of look at what we did in a narrative format, and then I'm going to kind of abstract that into like a formula, I call it, and give you 3 tips for starting your own kind of movement, organization, and then some live examples, other cool things that young architects are doing. They're not all social impact. Some have to do with technology, some have to do with kind of AIA organization. So that's kind of the rundown of the show. So about me. So I went to Roger Williams in NYIT. I graduated from NYIT in 2013, and I just got licensed over the summer. So I've been really involved with AIA and AIAS. Actually, how I started with AIAS is kind of funny. At Roger Williams, actually, yeah, I only joined because I won the raffle to become a member. And so it was like, I didn't want to join any organization. You're so into studio, and they have a beautiful studio over there. But kind of like under obligation to get out there and do stuff, I'm like, okay, join some clubs. I joined AIA, or I won the raffle to join AIS. So that kind of morphed into a better role at not a better role, but a different role at NYIT, where it was like, wow, there's things that I can be doing to make this organization better, make the school better. Like we're missing a microwave, we're missing studio space. We didn't even have dedicated studio space all the time there. So it became more of an advocacy thing there, and it really got me to be a good advocate. And then Freedom by Design was also a great organization. I hope is that still around and going strong? Because it should be, and I'll get back to it. But with AIA now, I want to see AIA working more with Freedom by Design. I mean, they should be really helping you guys out. Anyway, so in school, another thing we did was Operation Resilient Long Island after Hurricane Sandy. So after Hurricane Sandy, it was in our backyards. We were students, and Dan's going to explain that later. AIA New York, I got involved with AIA New York. While I was still a student, I started to build those relationships. And I was co-chair of Emerging New York Architects, or ENIA. And that kind of gave me the opportunity to meet all these different people, set up panels, have discussions, and really look at, my kind of passion is like the future of the profession, like I said. And so really look at that stuff and have the experts explain it. And then now I'm with the American Institute of Architects National Associates Committee, so representing associates on the national scale. So we're looking at different issues. What can the Institute do more? What can the Institute do more for associate members? So it's a really interesting question, what you can do at the national level versus the local level, and we're happy to look at that. And then my day job, I work at PBDW Architects. They do a lot of adaptive reuse, historic preservation, new architecture too. So there's a lot of letters. Everything's letters in architecture now. So again, back to this changing profession thing. There's a couple great sessions I'm helping out with too about millennials in architecture with Daria Solahub, who's writing a book on it. If you could, you can talk to me after, and I'll give you those sessions. But it's really exciting that millennials, products of technology, how we use technology is unlike any other generation. And that's gonna play a big role into how the profession develops. Also, like we said, the generational gap, how that's gonna develop. That's become a big thing in the profession. So it's kind of like, I use this image, it's like you have the old plaster kind of molded people, but then you have like this new digital age right behind it. So it's kind of like kind of a nice image. So the generational upmerge, so this is the generational phenomenon. So again, stated, there's not that many Gen X, but there's a lot of millennials. So how does that work? And what happens and who leads is the big question. So like in the workplace now, everyone's looking for a 10-year experienced person with Revit. And that kind of person doesn't exist. Because 10 years ago, they weren't really using Revit on everything. So there's a lot of opportunities for people like me, but I don't have management experience because I'm only 3 or 4 years into the profession. So like filling that gap is a challenge. And so what happens is I get stretched, and that's frustrating. And that's not good, and it makes makes me not like my firm and wants me to be less loyal to my firm. So firm culture is all about that. And funny enough, a big thing about millennials, you guys all know about studio culture and stuff, right? So like the early millennials were actually responsible for setting that paradigm up in AIAS, which is now kind of trickling up through AIA. It's like we want a better culture, and that solves all the problems you have with the profession, can all be dealt with like by looking at it culturally. So again, changing profession. One professor I had described it as like the wildebeest running off the cliff. Like all the baby boomers are, they're kind of set in their ways and they're just running off the cliff. And then what happens after that? It's a good way to think about it. Alternative careers are now kind of pretty much normal. Like I'll explain later these kids doing this technology stuff, but it's all happening, and it's happening faster than you thought. Alternative careers used to be like alternative, but now it's kind of normal. The traditional path is still valid, and so I'm an architect. It'll probably always be there, the traditional architect, but we're talking about expanding that for our future. And so new opportunities and new territories is what this presentation is really trying to push. And then technology versus experience. You're going to see technology kind of take the place of that experience gap a little bit, but then good leadership and good experience can't be replaced by technology. So it's definitely a balance between both of them. So seize the moment, seize now. You guys are the future. I'm so excited for you. And how do we fill the experience gap is the big question. So you are the young architect generation. I don't have a better generation name for it, but we'll talk. There's a website called youngarchitect.com with Mike Rosica, and I'm like, dude, you have it. That is the best name I could come up with. So it's, we're young, we're new, we want to do stuff differently. So it's new, so what do you want to do? It's really about your passion. So if you're interested in social impact design, do that. If you're interested in parametric design, that's going to be a big thing. So it's really about finding that passion and letting it come out. And another big thing is design build, and kind of has anyone worked on a design build project or a freedom by design project? And what that does, it's like kind of a new way of learning. It's called failure-based design, where you're kind of doing this live project and you don't know what you're doing, and inevitably you fail at certain things, but you still go through the process and get things done. So it's kind of like this accelerated rapid learning experience. And I would encourage, if you have the option at your schools to do a semester like that, I would strongly do that. And one of these extracurricular organizations is definitely practice in that too. Start something and learn faster, just like I just said. So your ideas will become the future. I was just in a review actually for Roger Williams, and I'm like, you can see these ideas coming to life. It might take 20 years or something, but the ideas you have in studio, they could happen, especially if you stick with it. And like a lot of times they feel far-fetched, but if you have the dream and you have the intuition, we're architects, we make the future, so it's really, that's like our gift to society, so like, it's gonna happen. So I just wrote some other words up here. Social architecture, kind of like social impact. What is architecture? How can that play a role in developing countries and in our cities and our communities? That's a bigger role for it to play. Nonprofit models. What are some good nonprofit models? And I see it more and more. I'm based in New York City, and AIAS, all these little groups are popping up that are community-driven nonprofit practice models. Video games and virtual reality, I think that's something to keep track of. Have you tried the VR stuff yet? Has anyone put one of those on? They have. I just got a Google Cardboard for Christmas, and it's a little piece of cardboard, but you could like fly in it. It's amazing. It's like, who would have thought? And you know, I don't know what that has to do with architecture, but there's like definitely a connection there between like, if you can make a virtual reality and have people really grow up. Imagine the kids growing up now. They get to grow up in virtual reality. I don't know if that's scary or what, but that's so cool. Decentralized practice and co-working. I mean, this is definitely a growing trend, and how people work together and collaborate together. You can just have a WeWork and figure out, automate your billing and your kind of hours worked and stuff, and you can have a decentralized practice across the country with different people you meet here at Forum maybe. Technology-driven and automated practice. So again, the technology's there. You could plug in enough parameters into a huge Grasshopper file to design a hotel. You know, it's not that tricky to do. I mean, just I don't think people do that. Yeah, that's what firms essentially do. But a lot of that automation will kind of come to life, I think, over the next years. And so what do architects do then? If a lot of that work can be done, we have to find something bigger and better to do. And so organizations are firms. I mean, that's basically it. And firms do something really well. So a particular firm, my firm does adaptive reuse. We do that really well, and we repeat it. We're good at it, so we repeat it, and that's how we make money. So what is architecture? So this is like the question you get in every class, I think. So like no one ever has the answer. So I'm just going to put up 5 thoughts I had about it. Like one I really liked was the ability to do more. And like it's not a building, it's architecture because it does more with the environment. Leadership as an architect, especially practicing, you know, you're leading a group of engineers and consultants all the time, and you're the one putting the pieces together, asking for the right information. I mean, I think the role of the AIA is to really be a leader. So I'd encourage you all to continue with AIA. Invisible order, I'm not sure about why I wrote that one. Intelligent artifice, I kind of was thinking about this, like artificial intelligence and intelligent artifice. It's something that man makes, but that's kind of has an order to it. And then the science of art of technology. And then grassroots, what does grassroots mean? I mean, it's kind of subjective. I don't think there's a hard definition. I'm sure there is, but the way I define it is bottom up, socially responsible, a cause with passion, and local and appropriate. So I think it's really about like, this is the path we chose, and this is kind of like the zeitgeist of our generation, and so how do we make them work together is the question. So now, Daniel Horan's going to present about Operation Resilient Long Island. So this is kind of like the case study project that we did after Hurricane Sandy. So Dan.
Cool. Thank you, Alex. So again, my name is Daniel Horan.